everyone. Mr. Corrigan here. Last week on the podcast, Tanaya, class of 2023, sang the theme song. Well, we brought her back this week to help kick off our celebration of Black History Month with her rendition of Lift Every Voice and Sing.
Lift every voice and sing to earth and heaven. Ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Cristo Rey podcast. I'm your host, Jay Sean, and I'm here with my co-host,
Emily.
and we are here for a special Black History podcast. We have special guests, and would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, Mr. Rose, aka Mr. It's Okay, 11th, 12th grade social emotional counselor.
Miss Dixon, also known as Coach Dixon, for those of you who have me as a coach.
As Mr. O, no AKAs, and I am an academic counselor for the juniors and seniors.
So, how do y'all feel like, as being Black men, how has it impacted your, I guess I want to say perspective or your work experience here?
I would just say, as being one of I think we have three Black men here in the building. It's just given me a new perspective in terms of being able to like meet the kids where they are, understanding what they've been through, and just trying to give them a perspective of somebody that has probably gone through the exact same things that they have gone through, and just give them a perspective from, I'm a little bit older than, all the students, of course. So being able to give them my perspective and, teaching them that, a lot of things have stayed the same. Some things have changed, but a lot has stayed the same, and just how to navigate through the world, being African-American.
For myself, I take it, I hold it to, to a high standard. I mean, I really take it seriously. Being able to, I don't take it lightly, being a Black man. As a professional, you guys see me, view us as such. It'd be irresponsible for me to not take that seriously. So I definitely take it. I don't joke around with that. I try to make sure that, as Mr. Rose says, try to share life experiences. That's literally, I went through certain things, hopefully so you guys wouldn't have to go through it. Just based on just trying to share experiences, share resources, share the information, whatever I can do to assist. I'm here, and also just from the perspective of being a first generation kid as well, and seeing myself and you guys a lot, because a lot of you guys are first generation kids, parents of immigrants, going through this navigate through this college preparatory process or career building process. So I just try, I see myself in you guys, and I try to, remember all the mentors that I've had that led me to where I am right now. So I know that I have a huge responsibility. We have huge responsibilities in getting you guys to where you guys are destined to be.
So we've heard a couple perspectives from Black men that we have as our staff here. So I feel like it's just equally as important, we should hear from one of the only Black women staff at our school. So Ms. Dixon, how do you feel like your experience as a Black woman has shaped you, not just in life, but in the workforce?
That's a great question. I think one of the things I always think about is the idea of the angry Black person, whether it's a man or a woman, and how sometimes I try to tread carefully, because I think it's very easy for people, even if you're as friendly as you can be, whether your interactions or in the written response you have towards people, people will still misinterpret it, or they'll read it in an angry tone. And I've been sometimes surprised, because I'm a very straightforward person. So I like to get to the point. I'm not necessarily somebody who likes a lot of the fluff. So because of that, I think there's a possibility that also being a Black woman, people are interpreting what I'm saying in an angry tone or an aggressive tone, where for me, it's just being matter of fact, like how I'm answering the question now. I don't have any emotion to it. I'm just giving a direct response. So I think that's one of the things that sometimes I even talk to kids about being mindful and not letting people allow you to go low. You say hi, you do the right thing, because sometimes people are just trying to build like a negative resume of all the things you've done that have been wrong as a means of possibly trying to get rid of you or possibly trying to prevent you from elevating in a particular place. And although it's very unfortunate, it definitely does happen. And even one of the things I've been told, all skin folk ain't kinfolk. And so that sometimes you have to still be very careful. Just because somebody looks like you can't necessarily assume they're on your side. Because I've even just read accounts and talked to people personally about how they assumed that because this person was also Black, they're going to be on my side, when that wasn't necessarily the case. But what I do enjoy is that Cristo Rey does have a wonderful staff here. So I'm very supportive.
Hey guys, it's Jade, and I'm here to tell you what Black History Month means to me. Black History Month celebrates my ancestors and highlights the contributions they made for my life today. I would not be living the life I have today if it's not for them. And I love that we have a whole month dedicated to them that shows all their sacrifices and shows how many contributions they made for us.
So, would you guys say that Black culture, Black history, I mean, I know we have a month dedicated to Black history, but would you guys say that in today's society, Black history and Black culture is represented enough? And if it's not, how do you think we can represent it more?
She's coming out the gates with some hard ones. Is it represented enough? I mean, I don't think it could ever be represented enough. And that's just not for Black culture. I just think anybody's culture, you can't over represent your culture and what you stand for. I do think that it has gotten better over the years in terms of representation. Black history, Black culture is a 12-month all year round, 365 day type of thing. So I believe as a society has gotten better, and there's more, there's more recognition of Black culture and the impact that African Americans have and everything that's going on today. But I think that we could be represented even more. Not only African Americans, but everybody's culture could be represented more. I don't know exactly how, but I feel like everybody's culture could be represented in a more productive fashion or whatnot, for lack of a better word.
I think Black history is not exposed enough. I think Black culture is. And what I mean is that, everybody knows that, a lot of the, just like pop culture, if you look at sports, if you look at music industry, if you look at a lot of those things, they might be highly populated with African Americans, and they are celebrated. But I feel like we don't have enough of the stories of our true African history. As far as me personally, I'm from Nigeria. My parents are Nigerian, so I know that there's stories that my parents tells me of how they were raised and how their parents were raised and how their parents were raised, and those type of stories I think that needs to be kind of the stories that needs to be narrated as far as more so African American history. And the reason why I say that is because it kind of is more of a what's the word? Every time I listen to the stories of my parents, it's always empowering. Talks about just talk about the royalty that my family and the lineage of of the Nigerian cultures and different tribes and different dialects and different. It just is so much information, and I feel like in society we get caught up a lot in the last 50 to 100 years. I think if we are able to think about some of the old stories and research and learn more about the Mansa Musas of the world and the Egyptian kings and gods and kings and queens. I think that'll just give us a more well-rounded history of Africans and how they descended to America. I think that we can always use more of that information in education.
A big problem in our community is obviously we have huge generational gaps to where yes, physically, but also too the young have problems respecting the old and vice versa. how do you feel like in your personal life, like how has that kind of shaped or you viewing it? If you feel like you viewed it, how has it kind of shaped you as a not only a black person but in the black community?
I think part of this answer goes back, touches a little bit on what Mr. O was saying in the history. We don't know our history, so as much as we should. So I think the pride and being proud of who you are and where you come from is certainly lacking. And you know, in the newer generation, I think because of the gap, the respect and everything has somewhat been lost. I think that African American, the elders need to reach back to the youth. I think a lot of times when we're a little bit older, we don't think that we can relate to the youth and reach them. But I think it's incumbent upon all of us that are older to kind of reach back and try to touch some of our youth and give them some of our passion, give them some of our you know, our history and some of our knowledge, so that moving forward they can have a new respect and gain a better insight on who they are, who they come from, the lineage, the proud lineage that they are, you know, a part of. And with knowledge, and you know, comes a lot more respect, because they don't know who they are, who they come from, and what they represent. Right now, I think a lot of people are kind of caught up on the whole hip hop culture and wanting to be, you know, the next Kendrick Lamar or whatnot, but they didn't know that, hey, we used to be kings and queens, which to me is way bigger than, you know, a hip hop artist. We used to, you know, we come from a lineage of royalty, and that's just been lost. So I think it's incumbent upon, you know, us to just kind of reach back and talk to the youth and try to help them understand who they are and where they come from.
Hey guys, it's Koya. So I'm sure you guys have heard the common joke. Of course, Black History Month is in February, the shortest month. Well, actually, Black History Month was chosen to be in February because it lines up with the birthdays of Frederick Douglass and Abraham Lincoln. Both people played a significant role in ending slavery.
I think that is very, it's definitely something that is missing in our culture today. There's definitely a disconnect, and there's a long, I feel like there's a huge, like the last few decades can tell you, just, you know, massacre, just not having just that family structure in the household to be able to get the same things that I got, like I just mentioned earlier in the podcast. Having both my parents be able to tell me stories, both my parents being able to educate me on how they were raised and how their parents were raised, and how important and valuable respecting of your elders are. To this day, it's hard for me to call people who are like my parents' age just by their first name, because it's the way that they instill that respect into me. So there's little things like that. And unfortunately, the numbers shows, you know, a lot of African Americans today are not in as many two-parent households. Not saying that that's you know, a issue or the solution, but that definitely, when you talk about the effect of bridging that gap, where that gap came from, I think it started from the home, and not being able to have the children being raised in that home, to be able to have their mom and dad perspective, and just that unity as far as being able to raise the children in the way that they want, that the way they were raised and how they want to see society. So hopefully, I mean, I think Mr. Rose answered the question the best way possible, but that's another piece that I want to add to that respect factor.
To piggyback off of what you just said, how do you feel like all three of you, like, how has Black stereotypes kind of molded the way, especially like in your childhood? How did that kind of, well, mold the way you thought, like trying to navigate your way through the world?
Well, I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, so it was I saw nothing but Black people. So I did not really think that white people existed, to be completely honest, up until a certain age. So like there was a lot of African Americans and a lot of Hispanic Americans. So I thought that, like, white people were like Hispanic. I didn't know, like, white, just like I didn't understand. Up until like I really remember, like I got to middle school, like around middle school, and having like the first interactions with white people, and understanding that, like, oh, you know, there's, and it kind of feels weird because I feel like that kind of killed like the innocence and like I don't know, like it just did not, everything was no longer like authentic. I feel like after that moment, it was just more like, oh, okay, well then this is the norms of white people. These are the norms of Black people. These are, and it's just like, literally that's when like, I feel like the world just like kind of influenced some of like, because it has to bleed into like, sometimes you're kind of your scheming. So like if you work with young ones, like I have a 4-year-old and 3-year-old, and before that I was a daycare teacher. You can't, like, they're not born with like, they're not born being racist. They're not born not liking the other race. That those type of things are taught. I don't know, that for me was kind of my early experience. How did it shape me? Was that the question? How did it shape me? It kind of, for me, I'm so happy my parents moved to Ohio because it was able to help me become more well-rounded. Because I feared that if I would just stay in New York, my experiences or my mentality of white people would not be the same because I would not have had as many experiences with them. So when I moved to Ohio, it was just like, what? Took some time to adjust, but it was like, oh, you guys, like I had a lot in common with a lot of people who didn't look like me. So then I was like, oh, it's like, and then so going back to that like innocent, normal mentality, which I don't even remember when I had, because it was just like, it's been so clogged in like the norms of society. But yeah, I'm just happy that my parents moved to Ohio and I was able to get the different, I've lived in an urban environment. I lived in a rural environment. I lived in a suburban. So I've been able to have to mesh with multiple people, different types of people. But I'm happy that the foundation of my parents being able to instill in me who I am, where I come from, I'm happy that I was able to have that.
Hey guys, it's your girl Icy here. So today is actually Miss Galan's last day, so we wanted to do a little podcast to say our goodwills and then she could explain some stuff to us before she leaves.
Thank you, Icy, for that introduction. Yes, it is my last day today, so it's really sad because this is obviously the place that has the best students in the world. So I'll definitely be missing the hallways and seeing your lovely faces every day.
We'll miss you too. So where are you heading to?
I'm actually leaving education, which is something I never thought I would do, especially not soon. But I will be going into the marketing field, and my education, like I have an education background, my degree's in education, so I never thought that marketing would be calling me one day. So I'm really excited to see what it's like and also learn a ton because I have not a lot of idea about what happens in the marketing world. So also kind of a reminder of the fact that you never know what your experiences are preparing you to. And also I would love to give a little shout out to the work study program because it prepares you for situations like this. Sometimes you know what you're going to be doing, but sometimes it surprises you. So use this opportunity, use your work placements to make sure that you are getting yourself ready for whatever challenge or whatever career path it will take you.
You were talking about how the PWSP basically like shapes you to expect the unexpected. So how has the PWSP like helped you throughout your years in Cristo Rey?
I think that it really prepared me to take a lot of passion in whatever duties my job requires me to do. So it just taught me that you have to give it your all and you have to always put your best foot forward. Also reminding yourself that you're learning and to take the opportunity to get to know the people that you work with and your supervisors, people that have been there for a long time. I think that skill is something that has really helped me in my experience as a student worker, but also in my work here at Cristo Rey, and something that I want all students to also take advantage of.
Right, thank you. What is your last advice, not only to the Cristo Rey students, but also to the PWSP program and how we could build a better relationship with our work study?
Awesome. So the best piece of advice I think I could give you is focus on transferability. So that's the idea of learning that even though you might not be placed at the specific job placement that aligns perfectly with your career goals, take the time to learn what you can get out from that placement, what skills you can grow on, that are skills that you need in that career that you really want and that placement that you're dreaming of that we get to place you sometime. So just always be mindful of the things you can take with you, even if that's not very obvious from the beginning. We take a lot of time to please you, and we take a lot of care into that process, so please trust us in the process and be in constant communication to see how we can support you and make sure that the experience is meeting your needs as well.
Well, thank you.
Of course, and I just want to lastly say that I am leaving the building, but I will never leave your lives. You get my phone number on the assignments actually that you get every time that you go to work. So if you would like to, please feel free to save my cell phone number. I will be, again, leaving the school, but I will never leave your side as a resource. So if you ever need help with college questions, with helping with essays, if you are wanting to learn about the marketing field, that's something else too that I will be able to help you with. So please save my number and think of me as a resource. Also invite me to your games and your graduations. I would definitely look forward to attending those.
Well, thank you.
Of course, I'll miss you guys so much.
We'll miss you too. Bye.
Bye.
I would say for me, I feel like I kind of had the best of both worlds. I lived in the hood, but my parents put me in school up at private school. So I was at a predominantly all-white private school. But then as soon as the bell would ring, I would come home and I'd be in the hood, amidst in the trenches in the hood. So I think I was able to use both experiences. And that's why a lot of students will talk to me now and they'll hear me talking about changing your suits and putting different suits on. And being able, immersed in both of those environments, you really had to be able to kind of switch your suits. You know, when you're in the hood, there's just a different lingo, different style that and then when you go to school with, you know, in a predominantly white school, you know, there's a different way that you need to kind of conduct yourself and carry yourself. And there's also different expectations. You know, when I was at that school, they expected me to probably be like one of the best athletes and, you know, not so much academic, just more athletic and things of that nature. And then when I'm go home, you know, they expect me also to be the athlete, not be in the books. So, you know, it's just being able to balance both of those, I feel has shaped me great because I got to see the hood aspect of it where, you know, kids are still able to become successful out of the hood. And I was also able to see, you know, the private school upper echelon of quote unquote society and being able to, you know, mesh well with them and also come home and still mesh well with everybody in my neighborhood. So I think that shaped me well to be able to balance both.
So for me, it's kind of fascinating. Like the church I grew up in was basically all Black, except for like maybe one like token white person. And the first 5 years, actually first 6 years of my education, it was mainly Black, and it was actually Catholic schools. One of them is closed. It actually combined with the current one, All Saints. So I went to a school called St. Thomas, K through yes, K through third grade, and then Christ the King 4th and 5th grade. And so for me, also growing up in a Black church, going to school with mainly Black kids, I always was taught about high expectations. I always saw doctors, lawyers, teachers, educated people. Like that was my norm. And I actually kind of assumed that was all Black kids' norm. Like they all get to see these great examples of Black excellence. And so that's part of why I think I really enjoy working at a Cristo Rey. It's because for me, like I've seen Black excellence and I see in you guys, it's just, you know, bringing that out and having you guys realize like you guys can be great. You guys can do great things. And that's just my norm. And that's why I'm a huge believer in high expectations. I think one thing I saw sometimes being in predominantly white environments is that certain Black kids were given lower expectations. And one thing I will always say is question people who give you low expectations. You don't want that. You want people to hold you to a high standard. High standards is a compliment. It is saying that you can achieve greatness. It's that sometimes when you fall short of that, it might be upsetting to think like, oh, well, I'm being disciplined, I'm being corrected, but that's a great thing. I always say, if I'm not correcting you, it means I don't care. So I'm always going to correct, I'm always going to discipline because I care and I know you can do better than what you are doing. And like I said, a lot of you have these amazing goals of what you want to achieve, but it takes work and it takes sometimes having to shift your mindset and shift what you are doing and really avoiding making bad choices or even being that one person in your friend group taking the risk to say, you know what, guys, we shouldn't do that, or this isn't a good idea, or let's not do that. So for me, my experience was shaped. Both my parents are college educated. So like I kind of made an assumption about what other Black kids had. So sometimes it's even a learning experience. Like I have to remember, like some of you guys have to work jobs. I didn't work in high school. Like for me, it was more like I got an allowance. Birthday and Christmas was a great time to get things. So for me, sometimes I learn from you guys about although I give you guys these high expectations, there's that part I'm learning of the compassion. It's the love part of the tough love, and realizing there are certain things you guys go through that was never a concern in my mind. It was like I learned how privileged I was growing up from seeing some of the things you guys deal with. But I'm always going to give you guys high expectations. You're always going to get disciplined because you guys can achieve great things. And I just want you to always remember that, and to not internalize correction or discipline as you're bad, because I don't believe that. I've never believed that about any of you. So just understand that because I've seen Black excellence, I'm like, of course you can be whatever you want to be, but it's going to take work.
Preach.
Yeah, that was nice. Okay.
Hey guys, Ujil here.
And Nishan. As we celebrate 10 years of Cristo Rey Columbus, we want to acknowledge the work partners that have been with us since the very beginning.
One of those 10-year work partners is Mount Carmel Health. Here are some Cristo Rey students placed at Mount Carmel this year to tell us about their experience.
Hi, my name is Kazumi and I'm a senior at Cristo Rey Columbus High School. Working in the emergency department has really helped me so much, and I've learned so much about what nurses do behind the scenes. I'm grateful for this opportunity for working at Mount Carmel because I would like to be a nurse in the future.
Hi, I'm Diane. I'm a senior here at Cristo Rey Columbus High School. Working at Mount Carmel has been really interesting because I'm able to see the infrastructure of the hospital and able to see how people interact within that hospital. And that's really important to me because I'm becoming an architect in the future.
Hi, my name is Hattie and I'm a senior at Cristo Rey. When I'm older, I want to become an anesthesiologist, and Mount Carmel is the perfect place for me because I get to meet the head of the anesthesia department and ask him questions to see if I really want to get into that field.
Thank you, Mount Carmel, for being a 10-year partner.
Thank you, Mount Carmel, for being a 10-year partner.
Thank you, Mount Carmel, for being our 10-year partner.
Yeah, so this question, like, I love everything that you guys are saying. I love hearing both sides of the spectrum, but this question is kind of directed a little more towards Ms. Dixon, but I would love to hear everyone's opinion on it. What is your guys' stance on the current beauty standards for Black men and women right now?
Well, one thing I will say, and part of why I love wearing braids, is that at one point it was not seen as professional. It was seen as something you can't wear to the workforce, or wasn't seen as something that can be formal. That's why, for me, it's like, this is an honor to be able to come to work and wear my hair in braids, and it's considered professional attire. Because at one point, there were schools who actually banned twists, braids, and locks, and there are still places to try to do that. Or there was that one Black wrestler who they made him cut his locks off. It's like it was cutting off his power. And to me, part of why it's so important for us to continue speaking up, including students, is we're making changes to what's being considered professional. Because professional is a norm, but what is norm, it doesn't necessarily mean what we fall under. It would take us more work to match a norm that was not created with us in mind or with us in the room. And so what I will say, things have gotten better. Like I will credit student council for allowing head wraps, because that actually allowed me to be able to wrap my hair too. So like, that's why you guys actually do inspire me with challenging what is seen as professional. Because if we don't, we will still hit the roadblocks of like, oh, well, you can't do this, or, oh, you can't wear your hair that way, you can't do that. So I will say things are definitely getting better when it comes to that. And even when I was younger, just the idea of the obsession with Black women's hair, Black girls' hair, I think we're getting better about not obsessing over that as much. Because I remember as a child, I couldn't stand it. I couldn't stand people always wanting to make comments or ask questions at school, especially when I went to a predominantly white school. It was just not understanding boundaries or being touched. Like that was another big thing. Like, you know, for one, I don't like being touched at all. You know, for many reasons, but especially when people would touch hair. Like just like the idea of cutting off hair is like a form of power. I think the idea of like touching and feeling is a form of you know, disempowering somebody, because you're basically saying, I don't know what this is, and I should be able to put my hands in it and get an idea of what it is. That's not okay, and it's not appropriate, but things have definitely gotten better.
I think I'm just gonna touch on just like what beauty looks like to you. So like you have to instead of allowing. So I feel like that's the one thing that social media, unfortunately, everybody just puts up their highlight reel. They don't put up. No one is ever like just failed this midterm. No one's gonna post that on Instagram. No one's gonna post, just got kicked out of Corrigan's class and just put a cell. No one's doing that. Everyone is always gonna just spend 5 hours in the mirror, taking their time and just highlight their best versions of themselves at every given time, and that's very unhealthy. Because the people who are, and that's why I personally am not on social media, because I knew the effects that it was having on me, and I didn't want to subject myself to unnecessary stress. Life is already stressful as it is, and to navigate it based off of other people's lenses and their highlight reels is just not reality. So that's my kind of quick answer. I just want all of us to it is going to take some work, especially now that we've veered off because I know I'm all over the place, but I wonder how the generation, like the social media generation, I wonder how I wonder what all effects are going to happen, are going to come up, and reveal itself after, we see 10 to 12 more years of, social media.
Hey guys, it's Rebecca. Melanated and Educated is excited to announce that Cristo Rey will be holding its annual Black History Month celebration in honor of Black History Month for its second year. The event will be organized and hosted by Melanated and Educated on Friday, February 10th from 2:45 to 4 p.m. That's right, 2:45. We'll have early dismissal that day so all can attend. The celebration will be held at the library auditorium on the first floor. See you there.
Being raised on social media is not healthy. People just operate in groupthink. No one really I feel like everybody's being in a box. Everybody's being boxed. And just so to answer your question about beauty and about Black and brown beauty in particular, I think we need to go back to what we know. Just I don't know, go back to what you feel, what beauty looks like to you, instead of trying to get permission to be beautiful from society.
And I think just to piggyback off of that, I think our women, Black women, are, when you look at the music videos, we're the only race that has our women dressed the way that they're dressed,
Yes.
doing the things that they're doing. Even when it comes down to some of the women artists or whatnot and what they're promoting, you don't see some of these body positive artists getting the limelight. You're seeing the ones that are in the skimpy clothing. I'm not knocking their music or anything. I just think that it's sending a message to all of our youngsters out there that this is okay. You don't have the MC Lights anymore, the Queen Latifahs, the people that were giving positive messages. Now it's just more, y'all know what it is. And you see the over-sexualized, especially in our people, for our Black women. When you turn on a video, all they're doing is twerking in some skimpy shorts, skimpy clothes. But if you turn on a country video, you never see that. You turn on a metal video, you never see that. You turn on any other race's video, you turn on, Mexican or Spanish music, you don't see any of that. It's only in our race. So I think we have to do some major, reworking to get this thing figured out, because right now we're just, it's a bad look to me.
So another thing too, I know we talked a little about the generational gap. I also noticed, especially on social media, and related to the topics we just shared, I feel like there's a big gap between our Black men and Black women, and we're put to fight against each other. And personally, it irritates me because I get tired of seeing it all the time. But honestly, I just kind of want to get to know y'all's viewpoints, especially since we have men and we have a woman, just also kind of understanding to y'all sides of the story, because I feel like a lot of it is miscommunication with our people. So, and we get defensive based on perceptions that aren't always true. So I'd just kind of like to know y'all's perspectives.
The Black woman, Black man thing this has been systematically broken down over years and years and years and years, back to slavery time, to where they made, the woman and the man, they would take the man out of the house, and then it was just a woman, and it was a single household. And then the crack epidemic, then you took the man out of the household and it was single woman. And then, I just think it's just been year after year, you're just seeing a lot of society has specifically targeted the Black family to break up the Black family. I think they saw power in when we had the two-parent households. I think they saw power in that. The powers that be saw that and made it their mission to do everything they could to break up the Black family household. And I think that's why you have that division between Black women and white. I was just watching a thing with the New York Knicks. All starting 5 members of the New York Knicks all had white wives. That became an issue, but I just think it's just because, you know, society has just broken the Black household apart, and I think it was systematically done. They did that on purpose, and honestly, I think as a whole, we all kind of fell in that. And I can't talk much because my wife is not African American, so you know, I guess I would be, you know, I'm not one to judge anybody, but I just think that society pretty much has caused that divide amongst all of us.
I just want to speak also to the idea of certain things that definitely kind of impeded, like the crack epidemic. I still think we're recovering from that. I think for one, it was never taken seriously. It's kind of always been a joke. It's something that with the current one with heroin, that's like all of a sudden now we're taking drug addicts seriously. We're not throwing them in prison. We're not really mocking them. That's one thing I think that I kind of sat down and really thought about, is how has this affected us long term? And I think it's also affected us to where we're seeing probably the grandchildren and the great grandchildren of the epidemic of crack. And how I remember one thing my mother used to say to boys who would speak to her in a disrespectful way. She would say, "Would you speak to your mother that way?" And they said yes. So she stopped asking that question of them and just started saying, like, "Well, you're not speaking to me that way." And so I found it so concerning that these young men were basically being raised to be disrespectful to women. And I think if you're not taught to be respectful to women, and you're also taught as a girl that this is the kind of behavior you should expect from men, then it's going to produce unhealthy relationships. I'll never forget when she told me of a domestic violence situation between 2 Black kids that were a couple, where he literally tried to strangle her in the hall. And that it was like basically right in front of an administrator. And I'm thinking, what's going on where they both thought that was healthy behavior to exhibit, that they did it and basically in front of an audience. So I think there's a lot of stuff that's currently going on with our Black youth that's not being addressed. I think another part of that too can just be, we got to get better about our mental health.
Hey guys, Naomi here. In honor of Black History Month, it's time for the African American Historical Heroes Challenge, brought to you by your local SMAF department. If you've forgotten, SMAF stands for Social Studies, Music, Art, PE, and Health. Now, can you be the first student in your grade level to email Mr. Corrigan with a 2-sentence description of the impact of the following historical figure? Today's category is U.S. History. Okay, here goes. The African American historical hero for today is Dorothy Vaughan. If you are the first in your grade level to email Mr. Corrigan with an accurate description, you will earn 3 bonus points in any SMAF class. Good luck.
There's a lot of suffering going on and a lot of suffering in silence. And I think, unfortunately, kind of just going back to the whole idea of, you know, the stereotyping that we're not allowed to be sad, that we're not sad as people, right? Like, we don't need mental health when we know we definitely need it. And what I'm hoping is that we can make changes so that it's better for the next generation, so there's not that fighting, because you can't tell me that fixing mental health won't maybe fix the problems, because some people are probably having mommy issues or daddy issues, people who are dealing with generational curses because the people before them, how they treated them and how it's continuing the cycle of violence. And because even with Black women in domestic violence, it's every 5.5 hours a Black woman is murdered by her partner.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, it at one point it was actually 20 hours and it just keeps dropping. And so I just think to myself, like, what's going on? Like, that's a serious problem that I don't think gets discussed enough. And I think, but once again, sometimes I see some of these data points being used for us to attack each other and not to actually look at the root and to actually help each other. It's being used just to attack, which I think is very sad, when it shouldn't be about me versus them, but we're all in here together.
It's hard to top those. Like, it's hard. I'm just gonna give some facts. and literally just combine what they both mentioned. And Section 8 was created in 1974. Created, and it was passed from Congress by HUD, Housing and Urban Development, to create these extra subsidies to create better housing for people in urban communities. And some of the contingencies of that was like, you could not show that if you had proof that a man was living there, you could not get some of the funding. If you had, if your income was such amount, you couldn't. So what that did was, and around the same time, I don't think it's a coincidence that the crack epidemic was happening, and how it wasn't just what was, when crack was taking over the streets in a lot of urban communities around the country. They also developed a 3-strike system, which would give people who had nonviolent offenses, if you had three nonviolent, it could be violent or nonviolent offenses, you were sentenced to life in prison. So that separated, just a reality that separated the Black family. We are in the process of trying to build that back up, but it's not going to be easy. And unfortunately, it's going to be more of what you're seeing on social media. What we can do is is make sure that our women are safe. That's the one thing that I don't play around with. I always protect Black women. I do not play around about that at all. And the reason why that's important, because I feel like they're like endangered species out here. I feel like no one is protecting them as they should be protected, but then they're the highest race of group of people who are graduating college right now, percentage-wise. Those are facts. They need to be protected, and it's our job as Black men to protect them. We just have to remember, like I said, the foundation of who we are. Remember who we are so that we know where we're going.
I have one more question. This one's not as long, but I was just asking because I don't know if it's how long it's been out just yet. I mean, quite yet, but have y'all seen Black Panther?
I watched it again last night. That's so interesting you said that.
Did you see the second one?
Yeah.
I hear it's emotional, so I'm going to have to be emotionally prepared.
It's heavy.
I haven't got to watch it yet, but I'm going to.
I read celebrity gossip, so I remember before he came out with his cancer diagnosis, I did see him being wheeled to the hospital. He was really thin, and that's when I was like, something's wrong. And so when they finally came out, I was like, oh, we lost a legend.
It's heavy.
Yeah,
but
I'm watching it. I heard it's worth it.
It's better than the first.
That's what I heard. That's what I heard. My kids.
You haven't seen it either?
I'm gonna see it.
Asking a question. It might be a wrap.
I'm gonna be honest though. I was not expecting to hear Miss Dixon say, "Oh, I read celebrity gossip." I was not expecting that.
That is true. I don't.
I like to say it's one of my time wasters. To read celebrity gossip.
But Jay Sean, how are you gonna ask the question and you haven't seen it yourself?
Hey. It's okay.
It's journalism 101.
Right.
I do want to say something real quick. I want to appreciate Mr. Corrigan and you guys for creating a space to have, first of all, to get ahead of it, but to be able to have the foresight to be able to create episodes that can give a majority of our students the opportunity to hear some of our insights that they typically won't get. So I do appreciate that, creating that space.
I concur. Second.
Yeah, I agree.
I'd also like to say thank you because I feel like, personally I'm grateful that we have 3 examples of Black excellence personally right here. So I'm grateful for that too. So I thank you all for taking the time to be here and, just, share your experiences and insights. So I appreciate that.
Thank you guys. Thank you, Em.
You're welcome.
Well, this wraps it up for this Cristo Rey podcast episode, and make sure to tune in for the next one. See you later. Bye.
Later.
Bye, guys.
Happy Black History Month.
Happy Black History
Month. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun, let us march on till victory is won.
Lift every voice and sing to earth and heaven. Ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea.